Do not die like a snake. Do not live like a frog. Long ago, near a rice field, there was a small pond where many animals lived together peacefully. There lived a crab in a quiet burrow. The crab was kind and honest, and it always helped other animals whenever they were in trouble. One day, heavy rain began to fall. A frog had nowhere to shelter, so it jumped to the crab's burrow and asked for a place to stay. The crab did not hesitate. With a smile, it said, "If you have nowhere to stay, please come and live with me." The frog was very happy and promised, "I will never forget your kindness." As the days passed, the frog lived comfortably in the burrow. The crab always shared its food and took care of the frog like a brother. But little by little, the frog became greedy. It thought to itself, "This burrow is such a good place to live. If the crab were gone, it would belong to me alone." One day, when the crab was not paying attention, the frog attacked and ate the crab in order to take the burrow and make it its own home. From that day on, the frog lived in the crab's burrow. Every night, it loudly croaked throughout the pond, boasting, "This is my home. No one can drive me away." Not far from the pond, there lived a snake. The snake was cruel. It often bit small animals without mercy and caused all the other animals to live in fear. Whenever the villagers saw the snake, they would say, "Do not let it live. If we leave it alive, it will harm others." One day, the snake crawled out to look for food. The villagers found it and beat it until it died. No one felt sorry for the snake or mourned its death because it had lived by doing evil. That same night, the frog's loud croaking could still be heard throughout the pond. The sound attracted another snake, which crawled toward the pond. The frog, which had always been so proud and boastful, had nowhere to escape. It became the snake's prey. The next day, the pond became quiet again. All the animals gathered and said, "Those who live by doing evil will not be loved by others. Those who are greedy and become blinded by their own boasting will eventually suffer the consequences of their actions." This is the wisdom expressed in the Khmer proverb, "Do not die like a snake. Do not live like a frog." The snake died because of its cruel and evil nature. The frog lived by forgetting the kindness of others, becoming greedy and boasting loudly, until its own behavior eventually brought danger upon itself. Therefore, people should live with honesty and gratitude. We should remember the kindness of those who have helped us. We should not boast about ourselves, and we should never harm others. If we live this way, people will love and respect us while we are alive, and when we leave this world, others will remember us with respect and affection. Known by their word, an elephant by its tusks. Long ago, there was a Khmer village situated near a Buddhist temple, surrounded by rice fields and rows of sugar palm trees. The villagers lived together in harmony. They helped one another, respected the monks, and listened to the wisdom of Ta Achuri, an elderly and respected man who was known as one of the wisest people in the village. In that village lived a young man named Chan. Chan was hardworking, polite, and always willing to help others. Because he was honest and trustworthy, everyone in the village believed in his word. The village also had an elephant named Pesh. Pesh was a large, gentle elephant with beautiful white tusks. Every day, he helped the villagers with difficult tasks. He pulled logs, carried rice, and helped with other heavy work. Everyone loved Pesh because he never harmed anyone and quietly served the community. That year, the temple was preparing for its annual festival. All the villagers worked together to decorate the temple, make banners, prepare food, and build a large wooden entrance gate. Ta'achari gave Chan an important task. He asked Chan to prepare a large tree trunk to be used for building the entrance gate. Chan bowed respectfully and happily accepted the responsibility. That day, while Chan was preparing the wood, a villager suddenly came running to tell him that another family urgently needed help. Without hesitation, Chan went to help them. By evening, Ta'achari asked him, "Chan, have you finished preparing the wood for the entrance gate?" Chan thought that he could go and bring the wood early the next morning. He did not want Ta'achari to worry, so he answered, "Yes, grandfather, it is ready." But in fact, the wood was still in the forest. The next morning, the villagers gathered at the temple to build the entrance gate. Everyone waited for the wood, but the wood never arrived. No one scolded Chan, but the villagers looked at him with disappointment. Chan stood silently. He knew that the real problem was not simply that the wood had arrived late. The real problem was his word. At that moment, the elephant Pesh came out of the forest. He was pulling a large tree trunk behind him. The villagers quickly worked together to lift the wood and build the entrance gate. They finished it just in time before the temple festival began. A small child walked over and touched Pesh's tusk. The child said, "Pesh's tusks are so beautiful, and they are so useful." Chan looked at Pesh and lowered his head. Then he walked in front of the villagers and spoke honestly. "I am sorry. The work was not finished, but I said that it was already done. I caused all of you to lose trust in me. From today on, I will never say that something is finished when I have not actually completed it." Ta'achari smiled gently and said, "An elephant is valued by its tusks. A person is valued by their word. Good tusks make an elephant recognizable. Honest words reveal the true character of a person. That is why our ancestors said, 'A person is known by their word, an elephant by its tusks.'" From that day forward, Chan never again spoke as though a task were finished before it was actually completed. He only promised what he knew he could do, and he worked hard to make his actions even better than his words. Little by little, the villagers began to trust him again. Meaning of the proverb: a person is known by their word, an elephant by its tusks. This proverb means that people are judged by their words, their honesty, and their ability to keep their promises. Just as an elephant is recognized by its tusks, a person is recognized by their words and actions. Honest words create trust and respect, but words that are untrue can cause other people to lose confidence in us. The important thing is not simply to speak well. Our words should be consistent with our actions. Life lesson: think before you speak. Tell the truth. Keep your promises. Make your actions match your words. A person's reputation is not built by beautiful words alone. Whether it was rice farming season, harvest season, or the time of a festival at the temple, everyone contributed in some way. Those who had strength contributed their strength. Those who had ideas contributed their ideas. Because everyone worked together, the community's work usually went smoothly. In that village lived a young man named Sovan. He was strong and intelligent, but he had one habit that the villagers did not like. He rarely participated in community work. Whenever other people were working, He preferred to stand nearby, joke around, or talk, sometimes distracting the workers and making them lose their concentration. That year, before the big festival at the temple, the villagers decided to build a small bamboo bridge across the canal. The bridge would make it easier for children, elderly people, and visitors to travel to the temple. From early morning, everyone came together to help. Some people cut bamboo, some tied ropes, others carried materials to the edge of the canal. Even the children helped by bringing water and collecting ropes. Only Sovin did nothing. He walked from one place to another, joking and laughing. Sometimes, he even called the workers to stop and take a break. As a result, some of the work had to stop repeatedly. Ta'achari came over and gently said, "If you cannot spare the time to help, that is all right, my son. But please do not make it harder for others to work." Sovin simply smiled and paid no attention to his words. By the afternoon, the bridge was still unfinished. Because so much time had been lost, the villagers decided to transport the remaining bamboo across the canal by boat. Several people in the boat were rowing and paddling as hard as they could. Sovin also climbed into the boat with them. But he did not help row or paddle. Instead, he sat at the end of the boat and happily put his feet into the water, splashing and playing. The water he disturbed made it harder for the rowers to control the boat. Some of the bamboo almost fell into the water. The boatman stopped rowing and said with a smile, "Sovin, if you do not help row or paddle, do not put your feet in the water. It is all right if you cannot help, but please do not make other people's work more difficult." Sovin became silent for a moment. He looked at the villagers, who were sweating as they worked hard to row the boat. Then he looked at the waves caused by his own feet. Only then did he realize that even though he had not intended to do anything bad, his irresponsible behavior was making things harder for everyone else. He immediately pulled his feet out of the water. Then he picked up an oar and began helping the others with all his strength. Before long, the boat safely reached the opposite bank. The villagers then completed the bamboo bridge in time for the festival. From that day forward, Sovin changed his behavior. Whenever there was community work, he was often one of the first people to arrive. He stayed and helped until the work was finished. The villagers continued to remind the children, "If you do not help row or paddle, do not put your feet in the water." Meaning of the proverb. The Khmer proverb, "If you do not help row or paddle, do not put your feet in the water," teaches us that when we cannot help with other people's work, we should at least avoid disturbing or obstructing their efforts. Not being able to help is not necessarily a serious problem, but deliberately disturbing others or making their work more difficult is something we should never do. A good person knows how to cooperate, respects the efforts of others, and puts the common good before personal amusement. The proverb reminds us that in a community, we should either contribute positively or at least avoid becoming an obstacle to those who are working. Educational lesson. When people work together, every small action can affect the whole group. If we have the ability to help, we should offer our help. If we cannot help, we should respect those who are working and avoid disturbing them. We should not stand aside and make jokes, distract others, or create additional difficulties. True cooperation means helping when we can and, when we cannot help, making sure that we do not become a burden to others. This is the wisdom behind the Khmer proverb. If you do not help row or paddle, do not put your feet in the water. Knowing 10 things is not as valuable as mastering one. Long ago, there was a Khmer village famous for weaving baskets and trays from bamboo. Almost every family in the village had practiced this traditional craft for generations. In that village, there were two close friends named Dara and Rith. Dara was intelligent and curious. He wanted to learn everything. One day, he went to learn how to weave baskets. A few days later, he went to learn how to make clay pots. Not long after that, he learned carpentry. Then he tried learning how to make knives and how to farm. Dara enjoyed trying many different things, but he never stayed with one skill long enough to truly master it. Rith, on the other hand, chose to learn only one traditional craft, bamboo basket weaving, which he learned from his grandfather. Every morning, when the sun rose, Rith sat beside his grandfather and learned step by step. He learned how to cut bamboo, dry it, split it into thin strips, smooth the strips, and finally weave them into baskets that were strong, beautiful, and long-lasting. Whenever Rith made a mistake, his grandfather never scolded him. Instead, he patiently taught him again and again. Years passed. Dara continued changing from one occupation to another. He knew how to do many different kinds of work, but there was no particular skill that he could truly perform well. The villagers were reluctant to give him important jobs because they were afraid the results would not be good enough. Meanwhile, Rith's baskets became better and more beautiful with every passing year. His bamboo strips were even and carefully prepared. His baskets were strong, attractive, and durable. It was not only the villagers who wanted his baskets. People from nearby villages also came to place orders. Before long, Rith was able to earn enough money to support his parents, take care of his family, and continue teaching his children the traditional craft passed down from their ancestors. One day, Dara visited Rith's home. He saw many beautifully arranged baskets, while customers kept coming to buy them. Dara smiled with embarrassment and said, "I used to think that knowing many things would be more useful, but now I realize that I have not truly mastered any skill." Rith's grandfather smiled kindly and said, "Knowing 10 things is not as valuable as mastering one." He continued, "Knowing many things is good, but if you do not work hard enough to become skilled at something, it can be difficult to use that knowledge to make a living. A person who truly masters even one skill can support themselves, support their family, and become useful to society." From that day forward, Dara decided to return and learn bamboo basket weaving with Rith and his grandfather. He no longer rushed from one skill to another just because he wanted to know everything. Instead, he patiently focused on one skill and worked hard until he became proficient. From that time on, the villagers often told the story of Dara and Rith to their children and grandchildren as a reminder of the proverb. Knowing 10 things is not as valuable as mastering one. Educational lesson. This story teaches us that knowing many things is valuable, but working hard and practicing until we truly master one skill can be even more valuable. A person who is patient, persistent, and unwilling to give up can gradually develop their abilities and turn a useful skill into a way to support themselves and their family. The Khmer proverb knowing 10 things is not as valuable as mastering one reminds us not to try to know everything without developing real skill. Instead, we should choose something we truly enjoy or something that is valuable to our future. Then we should continue learning, practicing, and improving ourselves until we become genuinely skilled at it. Because one skill mastered well can become a profession and a strong foundation for a better future. The empty rice stalk stands tall. The grain-filled stalk bows low. One morning, the sunlight rose over a vast rice field. A cool breeze swept across the golden fields, making the rice plants dance gently in the wind. In the middle of the field, two rice stalks grew close to each other. The first rice stalk stood tall and straight. Its panicle contained very few grains, and the grains were light. Every day it proudly said, "Look at me. I stand taller than all the others in the rice field. No one is as impressive as I am." The second rice stalk was filled with grains. Because the grains were heavy, its panicle naturally bent down toward the ground. The empty rice stalk laughed and said, "Why do you always bow your head? Are you weak?" The grain-filled rice stalk smiled gently and replied, "I do not bow because I am weak. I bow because I carry something valuable." The empty rice stalk did not believe it. It continued to boast and look down on the others every day. A little later, an elderly farmer walked through the rice field with his grandson. The grandson looked at the rice plants and asked, "Grandfather, why do some rice stalks stand straight while others bend down like this?" The old farmer smiled kindly and said, "My child, look carefully. The rice stalks that bend down are usually the ones filled with grains. The rice stalks that stand tall and straight are often the ones with little or no grain." The grandson was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Grandfather, are people like rice plants too?" The old farmer gently replied, "Yes, they are. People who truly have knowledge, ability, and good character are often humble, polite, and respectful. Those who know very little but boast a lot are like empty rice stalks. They stand tall, but they have little inside." The farmer's words made the empty rice stalk feel ashamed. It looked at the grain-filled rice stalk, quietly bending under the sunlight. For the first time, it began to understand that true value does not come from boasting. True value comes from what a person possesses and what they can contribute to others. From that day on, the empty rice stalk stopped boasting. It learned to be humble and to respect others. This is the wisdom expressed in the Khmer proverb. The empty rice stalk stands tall, the grain-filled stalk bows low. Meaning of the proverb. The Khmer proverb, "The empty rice stalk stands tall, the grain-filled stalk bows low," teaches us that people who truly possess knowledge, ability, and good character are often humble, gentle, and respectful. In contrast, people who know little but constantly boast about themselves may appear impressive on the outside, just like an empty rice stalk standing tall. The more valuable a person becomes, the more they should understand the importance of humility. Educational lesson. True knowledge does not make a person arrogant. True ability does not require constant boasting. A person with wisdom understands that there is always more to learn and that every person deserves respect. Therefore, we should develop our knowledge and abilities while remaining humble and kind. Like a rice stalk filled with grain, the more valuable we become, the more humble we should be. The boat leaves, but the harbor remains. Long ago, there was a small village beside a peaceful river. The villagers lived together in harmony, caring for and supporting one another like members of the same family. One day, two boats arrived from a distant place and stopped at the village harbor. The owners of the two boats asked the villagers if they could stay for a while to look for work and begin a new life. The owner of the first boat was named Ta Saphik. He was polite, hardworking, and respectful toward others. Whenever the villagers had difficult work to do, he would come and help without waiting to be asked. When someone became sick, he helped take them to the doctor. Whenever the village held a festival, he volunteered to help with the preparations. He never insulted anyone and always welcomed people with a warm smile. Before long, the entire village came to love and trust him as if he were a member of their own family. The owner of the second boat was named Ta Vikhe. At first, he was friendly too, but as time passed, he began to reveal another side of himself. He enjoyed gossiping and creating conflicts among the villagers. He often failed to keep his promises. He borrowed other people's belongings, but rarely returned them on time. Whenever there was community work, he always found excuses to avoid helping. But whenever there was something to gain, he was always the first to arrive. Little by little, the villagers stopped trusting him and no longer wanted to associate with him. As time passed, both boat owners had to continue their journeys to new places. On the morning of their departure, the two boats slowly left the harbor. They gradually disappeared from the villagers' sight. The harbor remained as quiet as before, but the memories left behind by the two men were completely different. After they had gone, the villagers often remembered Saphik with smiles. I wonder where he is living now. I hope he is doing well, because he was a good man who always treated others with kindness. But whenever they talked about Ta Vikhe, the villagers could only sigh and say, "A person may leave the village, but the actions they have done cannot be taken away with them." From that day onward, the harbor continued to welcome many new boats. Some people came, and others left. But everyone who passed through the village left behind their name and their actions for the people who remained to remember. That is why the ancestors passed down the Khmer proverb, "The boat leaves, but the harbor remains." Meaning of the proverb. The Khmer proverb, "The boat leaves, but the harbor remains," means that a person may leave a place, but the reputation, good deeds, or bad deeds they leave behind will remain in the memories of the people who knew them. A person's physical presence may disappear, but their actions can continue to influence how others remember them. Good deeds create respect, trust, and fond memories. Bad behavior can leave behind disappointment, distrust, and a negative reputation. Educational lesson. We cannot always control where life takes us. We may leave a village, a workplace, a school, or a community and move on to somewhere new. But wherever we go, our actions leave a lasting impression. Therefore, we should live with kindness, honesty, responsibility, and respect for others. The boat may leave the harbor, but the memory of how we lived there can remain for a very long time. So, wherever we are, let us try to leave behind good deeds, good memories, and a good name. Walk in threes, speak in fours. The story. In a quiet Khmer village, there were three close friends named Saphi, Vanik, and Rith. They often helped one another with farming, repairing irrigation dikes, and taking part in community work. They were known for their teamwork and strong friendship. One day, A farmer asked the three young men to help clean his rice field and repair an irrigation canal. One of them cut the grass, another dug the canal, and the third organized the tools. They worked happily together until sunset before returning home. The next morning, the farmer hurried to find them. A valuable hoe was missing. Some villagers began to suspect that one of the three young men might have taken it. Sapi, Vanek, and Rith did not panic. Each of them carefully remembered what work he had done and where he had gone the previous day. Their accounts matched perfectly. Later, the farmer found the missing hoe underneath a pile of grass that had been collected the day before. Everyone in the village breathed a sigh of relief. The villagers apologized to the three young men for suspecting them without sufficient reason. At that moment, an elderly and wise man in the village smiled and said, "Walk in threes, speak in fours." One of the young men asked, "Grandfather, why should we walk in threes?" The old man smiled and replied, "My children, when you go somewhere important or travel to a distant place, it is wise to go with at least 3 people. If something happens, the other 2 can help each other or serve as witnesses to establish the truth. Traveling as a group is not about being afraid. It is about responsibility and trust." Another young man then asked, "And what does speak in fours mean?" The old man smiled and said, "A person who knows how to communicate should not speak in only one way. There are 4 important ways of speaking. First, know how to praise. Today, you work together very well. When someone does something well, they deserve praise and encouragement. Second, know how to criticize. Next time, before going home, you should check all the tools carefully. Constructive criticism is meant to help people improve, not to blame or humiliate them. Third, know how to express your opinion. I think we should keep all the tools in one place. When you have a good idea, you should be willing to share it respectfully. Fourth, know how to negotiate and compromise. If we divide the work among ourselves, we can finish faster without becoming too tired. Negotiation and compromise help people work together peacefully and find solutions that everyone can accept." The old man concluded with a gentle smile. A person who travels wisely should have good companions along the way. A person who speaks wisely should know when to praise, when to criticize, when to express an opinion, and when to negotiate. That is the meaning of the proverb. Walk in threes, speak in fours. From that day onward, the villagers often used this proverb to teach their children to live responsibly, cooperate with others, and use their words wisely. Educational lesson. This story teaches us that people should not always live or work alone. Having good companions and knowing how to cooperate with others can help us accomplish our work more effectively. It gives us people who can support one another, serve as witnesses when necessary, and build trust within the community. At the same time, words are just as important as actions. A wise person should know how to use words appropriately. Praise others to encourage them. Criticize constructively to help them improve. Express opinions respectfully when they have useful ideas. Negotiate and compromise to find solutions that everyone can accept. A person who knows how to cooperate with others and communicate wisely will earn respect, trust, and good relationships with the people around them. That is the valuable lesson taught by the Khmer proverb. Walk in threes, speak in fours. Drop by drop, the bamboo tube becomes full. pour too fast, and it becomes empty. In a quiet Khmer village surrounded by green rice fields and tall sugar palm trees, there lived an elderly man named Grandfather Chinda. For many years, he had been experienced in climbing sugar palm trees and collecting palm sap. Every morning, just after sunrise, Grandfather Chinda would take his grandson, Dara, to the palm grove to teach him the traditional way of collecting palm sap. On the first day, Dara stood nearby and carefully watched his grandfather climb the sugar palm tree. Grandfather Chinda gently trimmed the end of the palm flower cluster and then tied a bamboo tube underneath to collect the sap. After a while, one clear drop of palm sap fell into the bamboo tube. Drip. Dara watched with surprise. A little later, another drop fell. Drip. Dara impatiently asked his grandfather, "Grandpa, why is the sap dripping so slowly? If we wait like this, when will the tube ever become full?" Grandfather Chinda simply smiled and said nothing. The sun climbed higher in the sky. The sap continued to fall one drop at a time. Dara sat and watched for a while, but soon he became bored and ran off to play nearby. Grandfather Chinda, however, continued patiently taking care of the palm flower cluster as he always did. The next morning, while Grandfather Chinda was busy working on another sugar palm tree, Dara thought to himself, "If I cut it deeper, surely more sap will flow, and the bamboo tube will fill much faster." Dara took a knife and cut the end of the palm flower cluster much deeper than his grandfather had taught him. Suddenly, the palm sap began flowing rapidly. Pour, pour, pour. Dara was extremely happy. He thought he had discovered a method that was even better than his grandfather's. But before long, the sap stopped flowing. The palm flower cluster had been cut too deeply. It began to dry out and could no longer produce sap. Dara sat down and stared sadly at his bamboo tube. In the evening, Grandfather Chinda came down from the sugar palm tree carrying two bamboo tubes. One tube was completely full of clear palm sap. The other contained only a small amount. Dara looked at the two tubes silently. He did not say a word. Grandfather Chinda did not scold his grandson. Instead, he quietly poured the full tube of palm sap into a clay jar. Then he pointed toward another bamboo tube that was still collecting sap from a different palm flower cluster. Right in front of Dara, the sap continued to fall. Drip. A little later, drip. And again, drip. Dara watched without blinking. This time, he was no longer impatient. Grandfather Chinda placed his hand gently on Dara's shoulder and said, "My grandson, nature teaches us that good things take time. The sap that falls drop by drop, one drop at a time, will eventually fill the bamboo tube. But if you try to make it flow too quickly, it will soon run out, and the tube will remain empty." Dara slowly nodded. He finally understood that collecting palm sap was not the only thing that required patience. Learning, working, saving money, and building a good life also require us to make steady progress, little by little. The next morning, Dara climbed the sugar palm tree by himself. He carefully trimmed the palm flower cluster and tied the bamboo tube just as his grandfather had taught him. He did not rush anymore. He simply smiled and waited. One drop. Drip. Another drop. Drip. At that moment, Dara finally understood the deeper meaning of the Khmer proverb passed down by his ancestors. Drop by drop, the bamboo tube becomes full. Pour too fast, and it becomes empty. Meaning of the proverb. The proverb teaches us that patience, steady effort, and gradual accumulation can lead to success. Just as one drop of palm sap may seem insignificant, many small drops collected over time can eventually fill an entire bamboo tube. In the same way, small and consistent efforts in learning, work, saving, and building our future can gradually create meaningful and lasting results. On the other hand, people who are impatient and want results too quickly may waste their resources and fail to achieve lasting success. The lesson is simple. Do not underestimate small efforts. Be patient, keep working, and continue step by step. Over time, small drops can fill a whole tube.